Okay, time for one more post on the known and the unknown. This is number 3, and I'm going to call this Beyond the Borders. All right, I'm going to try and put up a little diagram here. This is always difficult trying to hold this steady in front of the camera. But so here's the diagram. And what the essence of this diagram is this large blue ball. This blue ball represents the totality of who we can be. The large blue ball represents the capital S self. And then you can see up near the top, there's a horizontal line. And that horizontal line divides what we're conscious of, which is what's above the line, from what we're unconscious of, which is below the line. Very much like the iceberg, who has 10% of its mass above the water, we are conscious or potentially conscious of maybe 10% of the totality of who we are. And that is the potential domain of the known world. And you can see in that part above the line, we have our ego, and most of us aren't even conscious of the 10% above the line because we spend so much of our attention trying to defend and keep that ego at the center of the world. But to truly know ourselves, the vast totality of who we are, we must drop down below that horizontal line from the small s self to the largest self, from our heads into our body, our hearts, our imagination, from the rational world into nature, the natural world. Or to put this all in one simple phrase, I say, we have to move from the known to the unknown. So this particular post I'm calling Beyond the Borders, although given that diagram, it's actually below the line, but I'm just going to call it Beyond the Borders. It's a nicer phrase. And so, yeah, this lure, this impulse, this tug of the unknown, it opposes that literal interpretation of things. It involves getting hooked and trapped in words and stuck in our heads. So I could say the tug of the unknown opposes or is opposite to the literal interpretation of sacred texts, whether they're the Quran or the Bible. It chafes at the leash of our Cartesian thinking world, the I think, therefore I am world, because it is so much larger than the thinking world. So this impulse and tug to the unknown would really undermine the foundations on the tower of reason. And it would jump the fences around the well-managed and manicured lawns of logic to seek some kind of freedom on the other side. This freedom and lure of the vast unknown, this freedom of the wild, does not mean license, chaos, or lack of responsibility. The power to throw off the shackles of consensual reality and effectively act in literal or psychological landscapes with different characters, energy, and rules takes courage. It takes practice, and it takes an inner sobriety. The discipline of meditation, the apprenticeship of a shaman, or the development of an artist includes a commitment to learning as great as any commitment required from a university to get a degree. It requires a commitment that includes challenges to one's definitions and sense of the self, in addition to the effort required to become proficient in whatever skills and tasks are involved. So to respond to the unknown, to respond to this calling, to respond to the lure, is to celebrate the grand, heroic adventure. That archetypal journey in which the protagonist leaves home to seek something, a magic potion, a healing gift, an insight or atonement in those unexplored and unmapped territories beyond what we know. The landscapes and characters of these mysterious realms can be strange, wondrous, or frightening. And stories of these journeys, these archetypal stories of heroic journeys, can involve descents to the underworld, flights to heaven, battles with dragons, or times of fascination or fear in Oz or Wonderland. But as a student of myth, I constantly remind people to remember that myth is not just a collection of stories from the past. Myth determines what we consider real or important. In the world created by today's myths, which are abstract, ego-based, intellectual, and alienated from the earth, the vast landscape of the unknown may include domains and territories that are labeled emotional, sensual, irrational, or spiritual. And entering this world might include forays into instinct, wildness, sensuality, the shadow, encounters with power animals, spirit guides, shamanic realities, explorations in dream synchronicities, conversations with ancestors or interspecies communication, and much more. All these forms of engagement lie outside the current consensual circle of the known, and any or all could be labeled frightening, flaky, irrelevant, or simply unreal. But the unknown is immense. It stretches far beyond the boundaries, literal, conceptual, and perceptual, of the known. To evoke this unknown, we have to affirm the presence of the great mystery through seeking out what is great and mysterious. And in doing so, we opt for fascination over fear. We aim to be entirely unreasonable. Profound or profane, we can celebrate curiosity and choose clowning over catechisms, hopping over the line and bouncing beyond the pale. I, or we, welcome you to let down your hair, take off that suit of seriousness or self-importance, and just come along, maybe just come along for a little romp. And so I want to finish with a poem that expresses this, a poem from D.H. Lawrence. It goes like this. When we get out of the glass bottles of our ego, and when we escape like squirrels turning in the cages of our personality and get into the forest again, we shall shiver with cold and fright. But things will happen to us so that we don't know ourselves. Cool, unlying life will rush in, and passion will make our bodies taut with power. We will stamp our feet with this new power, and old things will fall down, and we'll laugh, and the institutions will curl up like burnt paper. Thank you, D.H. Lawrence. And thank you for all of those who watched and listened to this. Aho.